Hello and welcome to another episode of The Chat. My name is Will Peebles and I'm with the Chatham County Public Information Office, and this week is National Telecommunicators Week, and I am joined this week by Director Diane Pinckney as well as Deputy Director Russ Palmer of our E911 Center. You guys are telecommunicators. Welcome. How you doing?
Thank you.
Glad to be here.
Just great.
Yeah.
Thank you for inviting us.
Yeah, no problem. Thanks for coming on. We just wanted to be able to highlight you guys during the week that is designated for y'all and telecommunicators, specifically our E911 operators. So thanks so much. I've got a few questions about that. So let's just get right into it. Yeah, so you guys obviously work with a lot of telecommunicators. Is there anything you'd like to say to them this week?
We just like to thank our telecommunications professionals for everything that they do, for all the sacrifices that they make. We'd like to thank our administrative staff that support the 911 Center, because if it wasn't for them, we wouldn't be able to do a lot of the things that we do in the 911 Center. So thank y'all for saving lives every day and impacting people and their futures.
I agree. We just really thank our staff for their relentless day in and day out efforts that they come in, snowstorms, hurricanes, St. Pat's Fun, all of that. They come in without asking any questions to make sure that they can be here to serve the community. So we really appreciate what they do every day for this community.
Really what I want to do today is kind of just give people a look at what E911 does as a whole. And then get into kind of the nitty-gritty stuff. What you guys are working on now? What are some things you're looking to address? That kind of thing. And kind of just to start off with, what happens when somebody calls 911?
Well, when somebody calls 911, the phone is answered by a trained 911 call-taking professional. And basically what she does is she'll greet you by identifying our agency and asking what's the location of your emergency. And that kind of leads people to an understanding that 911 is for emergencies only, not for administrative calls. So the call taker will ask a series of questions. She'll get just enough, he or she will get just enough information to process the call, which is the location and the nature of your complaint. That'll determine what kind of resources are sent. And then she'll farm that out, or she'll transmit that information over to the dispatcher, who may be in another room, and they'll actually send resources.
And to be clear, this isn't just for folks in unincorporated Chatham County. This is the whole county except for Tybee, right?
That's correct.
Tybee's got their own 911 center.
They do.
But yeah, so you guys are, it's a pretty big operation, Garden City, Pooler, Port Wentworth, Thunderbolt. Everybody who calls 911 goes to you guys.
That's correct.
On on a busy day, just ballpark, how many calls is that?
We get about 1,500 calls a day. It just depends on what's going on in the county. A bad storm, snowstorm. We had a snowstorm recently. Yeah. Rainstorm, rain event could really increase our call volume, and cause that spike. So it doesn't have to be any kind of major situation going on like a hurricane. It can be an accident, traffic accident, that could increase our call volume.
Yeah, for sure. So that brings us to a good point. When should a person call 911? Is there a level of emergency that you have to reach before that's like the preferred method, or at what point should they call 911?
People should call 911 when they have something that's just occurred, such as a vehicle accident with injuries, heart attack, childbirth. Believe it or not, we do get childbirth calls where a mother might wait too long to go to the hospital, so our call taker will have to coach them through childbirth, them and whoever's assisting them. So those are instances of emergency type calls, and of course, anything that's in progress or that's just occurred. Those are the calls that rise to the level of emergencies.
Gotcha. So what kind of resources do you guys use to gather information about that? What's the process there?
I will defer that question to Russ.
Okay. So if you remember, at the end of 2023, we upgraded to a new computer-aided dispatch system, or CAD system. So our CAD system is kind of the brain of all of 911's, where all of our calls are entered and all of our resources are managed to help us figure out who's the closest and most appropriate unit to get to the scene. So when a call comes in, they enter it through CAD. They use our Priority Dispatch System, which is the suite of protocols that we have for police, fire, and medical that give scripted questions, pre-arrival instructions. Kind of like Director Pinckney said, that childbirth call goes through those series of questions and then actually has several pages of scripted instructions on how to successfully deliver a child. Outside of that, we have some tools that can help us locate a caller if they're not sure where they're at, such as Rapid SOS, which is a really great tool that we use, as well as the mapping features that are natively built into our CAD system.
Gotcha. Yeah. And I learned this during a hurricane. Calling is not the only way to reach 911. You can also text 911 too, right? What are the parameters around that? Is it just like new text 911, please help, I'm here at emergency place? Like, how does that work? How do you guys handle text?
Well, we have this little jingle when it comes to text. Call if you can, text if you can't.
Oh, nice.
If you call, obviously we're able to get more information more quickly. If you text, it's going to take us a little longer, and we may not be able to get all the information that we need to process your call in a timely manner. But if it's going to put you in danger to call us and talk verbally, then by all means text.
Gotcha. Makes sense. Yeah. So how do you guys ensure that each call is being handled properly? Because 1,500 calls a day,
Yeah.
Each to potentially a different split amongst a lot of different agencies throughout the county. How do you determine which one's right? Like, what's that process like?
I'll defer that to Deputy Director Palmer. He'll explain a little bit about the system that we have in place called ProQA. So, Russ.
So with, we were talking about the protocols that we have for police, fire, and medical. They're very scripted. It's a great system that really allows us to provide the same level of service consistently over and over to each caller. We've partnered with a group that does our quality assurance reviews for us. So they take a sample. It's about 700 calls a month that they review. I'm sorry, 700 calls a week that they actually review, and they go through they listen to the call and match up word for word on the script, make sure that all the protocols are being followed, all the department policies are being followed with it. But we do outsource that, so it's a true unbiased opinion of how accurate they follow the script.
Gotcha. Whoa, that's a lot of accountability. That's.
And then we use it. The guy who's created the protocols, his motto is to catch them doing it right. So
Yes.
The goal is not to just review the call and find the negatives, but really to find the ones that are doing outstanding jobs on every review. And we have 10 or 15 of them every week that we send out to our staff that are high compliant, meaning that they asked every question as written, gave every instruction perfect. And it's a very strict protocol for what they allow you to do with it. But we really try and focus on the positive side of it, of making sure we catch those that are doing it right and make sure we give them the praise that they deserve for it.
I was going to say, that's like, in front of your peers, you're like, and this was done perfect. That's cool. That's awesome. That's probably like a real boost to that morale of it.
It is.
Sounds
Oh,
awesome.
yes.
Yeah.
And then anytime that we, if we see a trend of maybe one protocol's not being, questions are being skipped or something like that, then we incorporate that into some of the next month's training that we do for our continuing education process. So really trying to make it a full cycle of praising the ones that are doing it right, and then incorporating the things we need to improve on into our training process.
Hey, that's awesome. I'm going to get Catherine to start doing that. I'm like, this is a perfect social media post.
And it helps us out quite a bit, standardization of call taking. And of course, when we implemented the new CAD system and the new priority dispatch system, it wasn't just our communication center. It was the non-emergency call center. It was the airport and Chatham Emergency Services. So, and that means that everybody's asking the same questions if they follow protocol on any call that comes in, because priority dispatch, the script actually contains the most common calls that people ask, are the common calls that are received in a 911 center.
How about that? Okay, cool. And I wanted to talk about staffing. I've heard that staffing is up That's always a good thing. You know, with 1,500 calls coming in, you got to have people to answer them. Tell me about how that's been going and what effect that may have on service.
It's been going great. We've minimized the complaints that have been coming into the center, and the call takers are answering the calls more efficiently and effectively.
Gotcha. And you know, with all the new folks coming in, that's a lot of training that has to be done. I know we talked a little bit about the process for highlighting exemplary work, but like, what does the training process look like when someone first gets hired?
So whenever we hire someone, they have a couple of weeks of classroom training, so they'll get all of their state mandated certifications for CGIS information, all of their FEMA courses for incident command, as well as any departmental and county policies and procedures that they need to sign off on. And then we move to a couple of weeks of classroom training for the actual protocols. So it's about 2 weeks worth of training in a classroom where they're learning the protocols, learning the different call types that they use for each of the different categories. And then throughout those weeks, we incorporate some training. We have an AI system that allows us to create scenarios, for someone having difficulty breathing or childbirth, whatever, and the AI will actually interact with you as you ask a question. It'll answer it. You have to follow the protocol. You're typing it in the system, and it grades it based off of, just like our normal reviews would go. So after that, they move to some of the training on the CAD system, where they learn how to use the CAD, how to enter calls properly, how to manage the resources inside of it, all the other features and capabilities that it has. And that process takes about 3 weeks, 4 weeks sometimes. And then they move to the actual call taking center. They'll get paired up with a trainer on the floor and sit side by side with someone for about another 4 weeks. So from hire to released on your own, it's about an 8-week process.
It's a very important job, and so I don't know. It makes sense that there's that much training for it. But 8 weeks, that's, you got to be dedicated, because you're not just getting hired for the job. You're like, okay, I'm getting hired for this 8 weeks of training and then the job. And so we're talking about call takers right now. What about dispatchers? Is that process different?
So pretty much all of our staff come in the door as a call taker, and then once they get experience operating the system and get proficient on the call taking side, we do offer internal promotion to become a communications officer or a dispatcher. They continue their training side by side with a trainer. It can take anywhere from 6 months to a year, depending on how proficient the trainer or how proficient the training goes. But that's a hard process, because there's a lot of different agencies that we dispatch for, and you have to be proficient in handling all of them.
Yeah.
But the training process is a lot smoother than it used to be, because there was a time that you had to do everything. You had to think about it, and you actually had to make decisions based upon what agency needed to be dispatched, what backup units needed to be dispatched, what questions to ask. But now everything is scripted for the call takers. Response plans are built into the CAD system for the dispatchers. So a lot of the guesswork is taken out of those dispatch scenarios and those call taking scenarios. So we've come quite a long way.
Gotcha. So I want to kind of transition here. There's a new facet of E911 operations that's not really calling 911. It's calling the non-emergency call center.
Right.
It's still staffed by you guys. It's still run by you guys, but it's not for emergencies. That's not for non-emergencies. Tell me a little bit about what that is and why we started doing that.
The non-emergency call center they have their own management. However, we kind of work together to make sure that everything goes well and calls are handled smoothly. When you call the non-emergency center, you're calling them to handle situations such as reports. You need a report for insurance purposes, or you need a VIN verification so that you can get your tag. those kinds of things. Or you come home from vacation and you find that your house has been broken into while you were gone, so you need a police officer, you need a police response, but it's not anything emergent. So the non-emergency call center was created because the 911 center was handling those administrative calls, and it was keeping us from actually handling true emergencies. So what it has done is it's kind of taken all of those non-emergent calls off the 911 center, routed them to a center where they specialize in handling anything non-emergent.
Gotcha. So what are some of the examples of non-emergent, emergent, and actually, what is emergent? You've used that word a couple times, and maybe folks at home don't know exactly what that means. It's emergency?
That's threat to life, threat to property, something that's happening right now or something that's just
Immediate.
occurred.
Gotcha. Cool.
You need help right there, right then, like CPR, childbirth, as we were saying before.
Gotcha. So what are some scenarios where people should call the NEC or the NECC instead of 911?
You need a report for insurance purposes. You know, you have a car accident, both vehicles are off the side, they're off on the side of the road and nobody's injured. That's considered a non-emergent call. Just anything that, it's a report. If you need a report for some other purpose, like a domestic situation that happened a few days ago or a few weeks ago, or you want to add some information to a report that's already been made.
So the non-emergency call center has been going for a little while. How has that changed the environment at 911? Is it calmer? Is it working?
Well, we're still going through that transitional process. It has taken some of the load, a great deal of the load off of the 911 center. So call takers are able to focus on handling true emergencies.
What is, and I guess this is the really important part, what is the number that people can call for NECC, for the non-emergency call center?
912-652-6500, option 1.
Option 1. Gotcha. Yeah, and the next thing I want to talk about is Next Gen 911. I've heard you guys talk about it before. What is Next Gen 911? What does that mean?
So Next Gen 911, if you back up and think, 911 recently celebrated its 40th anniversary of the telephone number coming into existence. Since then, technology on our side of it, the community side of it, I'll say, has rapidly changed, right? We went from most everybody having a landline phone in their house to everybody's got at least one cell phone, maybe 2 or 3 cell phones that they're walking around with now. So a lot of our calls had shifted from landline based to cell phone based. You now have the IP phones where you can call over like an internet connection. So Next Gen 911 takes some of that legacy 911 technology that's pretty much deployed everywhere right now, where it's all based off of like a copper wire being ran at somewhere. It upgrades all of that to IP based, so over data transmission technology to kind of get rid of the old copper wire technology. But it allows us to actually better manage those cell phone calls, the text messages, video messaging will be a thing, videos and pictures will be a thing at the future, some point in time. So it opens the door for a lot of additional technology to be used in the 911 center, as well as share that information with the responders so that way they can respond more appropriately.
So how much work is it to replace, the former system with, or not, I guess it's not a system-wide replacement, right? It's just facets of it, and eventually it becomes the new system, right? Am I understanding that right?
Kinda.
Yeah.
It is, there is a hardware component and a software component and a training component to it, right? So for us in Chatham County, we wanted to make sure that we had multiple redundant paths so that if fiber gets cut or an internet service is having problems, that it doesn't impact our ability to answer calls. So we've worked with our vendor, and we actually have multiple different pathways going into multiple different buildings to ensure that we have redundancy in place in case there was any sort of fiber cut or any sort of tech problem on that side of it. So you've got that piece of it. The hardware, the servers, all of that is brand new. It's being completely replaced. And then there's a training component of it for some additional technology that we're adding to further enhance our service delivery once we do go to the next gen technology.
Gotcha. So, how will it affect service? You know, will it, like, I'll be able to feel like, okay, here's a picture of a car wreck. Somebody wrecked their car. I don't know. Like, what changes about it for you guys?
So the initial change for us is really going to be the stability of the system, you know, getting off of the old copper wire technology to the IP-based technology. We're looking forward to the location accuracy is going to be a big thing with that. Right now, like we said earlier, over 85% of our calls come in from a cell phone now. And so those cell phones have to be triangulated from a couple of cell phone towers, and you get an approximate location. With the new next-gen technology, it'll actually use the device's GPS location itself, as long as you're sharing your location, which will help give us a more accurate location for callers, especially if they don't know where they're at.
Yeah.
Gotcha. That sounds like a massive improvement.
Oh, it's huge.
Yeah.
I'm so excited to be around to witness all of this, because, you know, I'm from the era where you wrote things down on a dispatch card and you dispatched, and then we got the first CAD system, which was very basic, and now we have ASAP to PSAP. I don't know if Russ talked about that a moment ago, where you know, the alarm lines, we get a lot of alarm calls. That's the correct protocol, where these alarm companies, they actually can put the data right into the CAD system.
Oh.
And that takes those phone calls away from the center. We also have 988. That's the 24-hour confidential crisis hotline where you can call if you just need emotional support. You don't want to see the police, you don't want fire, you don't want EMS, you just want somebody to talk to. A person might be having suicidal thoughts, or domestic situations, substance abuse situations that don't require public safety responses. So basically, they can just call 988 and talk to a counselor. And if that counselor feels that they need immediate intervention, they can hand that call off to us.
Well,
So that further takes, you know, some of those calls that don't need to be routed to a 911 center, but historically they have been because people had nobody else to call. So we're happy about all of these systems coming together in support of the 911 center and public safety responses as a whole.
yeah, that's
If
awesome.
if I could piggyback
yeah,
off
please,
of the
please do.
ASAP to PSAP thing just for a second. Looking at some of the numbers from last year, that ASAP to PSAP protocol saved us over 25,000 minutes of talk time on the phone. So by using that protocol and having those alarm companies, you know, put this call into our system ready to be dispatched, we saved 25,000 talk minutes that our staff was able to redirect that to answering the 911 lines. So huge improvement.
That's crazy. Yeah. One of my favorite things about this podcast is you just get to learn. Like, you get to hear people talk about the things that they're experts in, you know, and really kind of dig into it. But yeah, no, that's awesome. Sorry, did I interrupt you? You had something else?
Oh no, we also used to handle animal services, animal control calls, and there may be times that we may still have to intervene, but the times are fewer, and so just having these different support systems is very important in our effort to make sure we can provide CPR, or when that call taker gets on the phone to talk that mother through childbirth, or her family member through birth, giving birth to the child. They can do that without the stressors of hearing the phones ring incessantly, because once a person has to give coaching instructions, that takes them out of the loop until an EMS unit or responder gets on scene, which could be about 20 minutes or more. So it's important for everybody to know the resources that are available in our community so that they can be redirected or utilize those resources, such as 311, 1 Chatham, 988, those types of, the NEC, so that we can be free to provide those valuable services that are emergent.
Really appreciate you coming on and telling us about what you do. And happy Telecommunicators Week. Very much appreciate y'all. And I hope that you guys have a better idea of all the things that our telecommunicators here in Chatham County do to help keep you safe. Thank you for joining us on the chat, and we'll see you again next week.